Darren, let me ask you this real quick, and then we'll get your answer on the same pod grouping there, Hack. So you mentioned it with Norvell that he's really, I mean, he's essentially been tasked with get this program humming the way it was before you were here. He's 8-13 in his career as a head coach. If he doesn't get this back above the level it's been in his stint so far at this school, is this his final shot?
I mean, they put Willie Taggart on a short leash. So, I mean, I don't know if he's going to get any, you know, like, I mean, you had 3 years, and it's not even 50% right now. So I think to me this year, if they need a couple big culture wins. What I mean by that, they need to beat a Clemson. They need to beat an NC State. They need a couple big home games, especially home games for them. Because you look at, like, typically Florida State, you travel to Florida State as like traditionally in the ACC. That's a game where, like, that place is rocking. Like Doak Stadium, that's a place you go. You're like, man, I'm going to play in Tallahassee. Like recently, they just got to get some more buy-in. Like a lot of even their fans don't show up to games. Like stuff like that has just been non-traditional. So I think this year they did a couple big wins. Program was looking at their schedule. They got NC State on the 8th, which would be a big win. They got Clemson following. They got NC State and Clemson back-to-back. Now that's going to be an interesting little October for them. If they can get one of those games, I thought that puts them in a good situation.
Interesting is a word. Also terrifying maybe is a word. I mean, like I'm if you can't tell, I'm kind of out on Florida State. I just think across this conference, like we've sort of said what the formula is to compete. It's return a bunch of guys on defense. It's have a great quarterback. Florida State doesn't have that, right, Hack?
Here's Greg. Here's something that I'm gonna throw at you. I had a take similar to this. You know, when you look at programs, history of college football, standard of winning, I brought up Nebraska. Where do you turn if you get your prodigal son and Scott Frost out of there? Is that a destination job any longer? Is it?
I think Florida State is.
Maybe not. Is Florida State still that? I think that's the line they're towing, though, right? Like, I think that is the line they're towing, because I think the next guy stepping into that understands that he, to your point, Darien, is going to have to establish or reestablish a culture, because I don't think Norvell's done that up to this point. And that's something that Florida State has always had. The guys, when they step in that locker room, they understood the history of the program. They understood the weight that bared, and they shouldered that and performed accordingly. So I think that's my only scare of like jumping ship too quick on 2 coaches in a row. It's making that job less and less attractive administratively, let alone all of the other issues that I think are going on down there from a culture standpoint.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because the only person that could come in and fill those shoes would have to be a big time name like a Deion Sanders. Like, honestly, like, to where you have the confidence as a human being to go in there and be like, we can make this thing work, but if not, I'm still gonna be myself. Like, it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, their whole recruiting pitch is getting them back to what they've been. Like, you look at the last decade, I mean, before Clemson we made our run, it was Florida State's league with the Dalvin Cook era, Jameis Winston era. And so that's what they pitched to recruits. And so I would love to see them make that leap, because traditionally, we think of the ACC, Florida State has been that. But the past, like, 7 years, it's been tough. In the past, especially 2 years, 8-13, they haven't been the team that everybody wants them to be.
The other thing I would say, just in evaluating how short of a leash someone has, maybe in light of the fact that this has been Clemson's conference for 5 years, and all of a sudden last year, Wake Forest is at the top of this division, right? We made our own Wake Forest jokes 5 minutes ago.
Right.
So what does that say if you are a coach who's heading into his 3rd, 4th year and you're still finishing at the bottom of that division? When the door is open, it doesn't bode.
I get it. I agree with that. Don't forget, I mean, Pitt.
But the expectations, though, too, Greg, expectations are different. You know what I mean? If Wake Forest has a season like that once every 10 years, great. They're probably going to keep paying that guy. Florida State, the expectation's different. So, you know, when you're dealing with that, you have to balance the weights of both of those issues in terms of consistency and relevance and expectations and meeting those. And that's a tough weight to balance, but you have to have buy-in top to bottom. I'm talking administration all the way down.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, back to the original hypothetical hack of that group, Louisville, Boston College, Florida State. Who are you highest on heading into the season?
I actually agree with Darien. I think I'm a little bit old school. I think the fundamentals of football, although there's a lot of flash and all this other stuff in, fads continue to go, but being able to run the football and defense carries. Boston College had a spectacular defense last year, third in the conference. That's always been a part of their DNA. And I think if I'm going to throw my hat in a certain ring, I'm not going to go for the flash, burn it down, have to win 45-42. I'm going to go with the guys that can stop the other team, control the ball on the other side of the football, on the offensive side of the football, and then be able to make plays off of that. And I think when you have a guy like they do as their trigger man, there's a good chance to let him get a little bit more comfortable into year 2 and 3 here and see what happens.
Yeah, I could squint and see Boston College's formula to a path of winning this division here, similar to NC State's, right? It's return a bunch of guys on defense. They were top 3 in scoring defense in the conference last year, and have a quarterback that can win you games and make plays when it matters. And I think across the board, I would lean, obviously, NC State. That's why we talked about them as a real competitor to Clemson.
Right.
Boston College still a tier below that, or a pod below that, as we like to say. But I agree with you guys that there could be separation. Look, I love the pod model so much, man. For anybody wondering what this pod term is, we're going to get to our rankings from 1 through the bottom of this conference to end the show. Hack's a little bit of a, I don't want to say diva because he's the face of this thing. You know, he's the pretty face of the field of 12. He likes to play by his own rules for that. He likes to go pods. So we'll see. I've allowed him to do that, by the way. I'm a hack advocate for that style.
And I appreciate that, Greg.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.